good to see you all. It's 4 o'clock and I'm happy that you're all here. You see the presentation in front of you, and please, if you do not see this, chat with me and let me know in the chat what you can and what you can't see. So later on we'll have handouts applicable, and so you can download those handouts after the session. It's great that you're all here. I mean, it means that there's a lot of interest for the DBNA, the new open exchange network in the US. And especially this subject had a global customer identifiers being a new element, which makes the DBNA network really, give it global potential. I think I can just jump through the slides like this. Oh no, it's like this, sorry. Okay, so first I want to give you a small introduction of the DBNA itself, and I know that some of you might have seen this presentation partly before, so that's why I'll go through the presentation about the introduction quite quickly, and then we take some more time for the global identifiers. So the DBNA network, Digital Business Network Alliance, it's established to operate an electronic delivery exchange in the US and mainly focusing on North America, Canada, and Mexico. It's there to support digital delivery and electronic business documents, and it works via access points. So, 1 second, yeah, one colleague here, but okay here, thanks. And it works via access points. So the access points, just like on the Peppol network, are the ones that help you connect to DBNA network, and this is the way it operates. Okay, thank you.
The session status not started. Okay.
What's that?
The session status not started.
I think it is. So someone says session is not started, but hello, yeah. And someone else says we can see it, so this is okay. Okay, so Digital Business Network Alliance, what it is, it's a not-for-profit organization, and especially that the board is selected by its members, and meaning that the members have a lot of input in whatever the DBNA is forming towards. So please be aware that whenever you join the DBNA, you will have a lot of input and you can help steer the network into directions that might be important for you. But the main focus, of course, is setting up this e-delivery for the US. The board is 50-50 represented by, on the one hand, service providers, and on the other hand, customers. So there's a lot of knowledge in the board. Mainly knowledge from the US, but also some service providers from outside the US that help with knowledge from, for instance, Europe and Asia. It is set up to also support faster payments. You had the Business Payment Coalition as a working group before the DBNA network, and actually the DBNA network then was erected afterwards as a sort of an infrastructure to make sure that also the documents that the Business Payment Coalition needs for faster payments, so for instance, remittance advices, can be transported over the DBNA network. As said, it's industry-led, so it has no interference of public authorities, and that is also, and you'll hear that later, why we were able to introduce the global customer identifiers per country, and that means around 220 countries that's applicable for. So meaning companies in 220 countries can sign up to the DBNA network and use an open exchange network as they might not have an exchange network in their own country. Well, and for that reason, we say the growth is organic, and it gives you access to, of course, the huge US market, but also to many other markets. I will open up the chat and see. Okay. So I just opened up the chat. So if you, in the meantime, have questions, please ask them because I'm happy to answer them, and that makes the session a bit more interactive. Okay, and I see the documents will be sent to you after the session. That's agreeable because I couldn't find them here in the handout, so that's logical. Okay. Then the framework is a four-corner model. So as I explained, it uses service providers as the access points to the Open Exchange network. And companies that like to sign up to the DBNA network do so via service providers. The end goal being that financial systems are connected on a data level, but of course via a standardized exchange network. And this exchange network uses standard document formats, uses standard identifiers, and uses validation by the different service providers of the sender and the receiver. So you could say the network is quite secure. When you connect to an open exchange network, it means that you can send to everyone who's on the network and whose identifier you know, and the other way around. Once you are registered on the network, everyone can reach you as long as they know your identifier. Yeah, and of course that's system agnostic. So it doesn't matter which system you connect, as long as you properly connect it to the network, you can always communicate via DBNA. And we're trying to explain about the network effect. This is an important element, as for service providers and for customers, there's a lot of importance in the fact that the network, the adoption, of course, grows and grows quicker. And so again, for all the members of the DBNA network, there's a role for everyone, also the users of the network, the registrants, and also the access points and the customers, to get the network rolling and get higher adoption. And as a fact, the tipping point for a network is around 30%. So as soon as a network reaches more than 30% adoption, then the network starts growing faster and organically. So that's an important figure to reach. Okay. So with the board of directors, because I didn't properly introduce myself in that sense, but I'm in the board of the DBNA, chairing the marketing and member adoption committee. And with this board, of course, we set goals per year. And we also set goals for 2024. And these are the goals. So at the end of the year, we want to have 80 access points signed up to the network. And we say, okay, it might be that 10 of them might be in the process of implementing, but this is the goal. 1,000 registrations, and C1, C4, that means the sender and the receiver across these 70 access points. So it's not a high number, but as everyone is really working on the first phase of implementation, it's harder to achieve higher numbers. But as soon as, of course, everyone is up and running, that number of registrations will be reached easily. So for the second year afterwards, it will grow much quicker. The network wants to support other documents too. So meaning you have, of course, the e-invoice, but you also have purchase to pay documents, order to cash documents. And so the network is there for all sorts of documents that can be standardized and that the DBNA decides to add as standardized documents on the network. So again, your input is valuable. The transition to the remittance pilot, this is the BPC I talked about. The BPC needs the network for transport of the remittance documents, remittance advice documents, and that pilot is in Q3, planned in Q3. And we work towards interoperability between also other networks. And with other networks, I mean, for instance, the PEPL network in Europe and Asia, but also, of course, you can connect to smaller networks like tax authority networks, or maybe closed networks like, let's say, Tungsten, Coupa, SAP Ariba. There are many networks that you can become interoperable with. And that's what the network is working towards. As you know, the US doesn't have a mandate. And with a mandate, I mean, it doesn't stipulate that companies need to connect to the network. There's no B2B mandate. but there's also no tax authority mandate. There's no mandate that says you need to send your invoice to the tax authority, and therefore you have to start with e-invoicing. So for that reason, we said, how can we make this network grow quicker without the mandates? And that's why we came with the 4 cells. 4 cells being cells of importance, especially to the North American market. And it's no limitation. So it means every company can sign up to the network, every company for which it's useful. But imagine that when you sign up to a network, the chance of one of your suppliers or receivers already being on the network is not that big. So that's why we formulated these 4 cells, energy, supply chain, life science, and financial services, because we want to make sure that the service providers focus on attracting registrants, customers within these 4 cells, so that for the companies that sign up, there's a bigger chance that their counterpart, their supplier or their buyer, is also on the network. And that's why we want to promote service providers, but also customers within these branches actually, to sign up and to make sure that there's a bigger relevance for the ones that sign up within the sector energy, within the sector supply chain. And as again said, this is a focus, it's not a limitation. So the network is open to everyone, but this is what we'll focus on. The smaller cells will grow quicker by themselves, and due to that, the larger DBNA network as a whole will also start growing quicker. This is an important announcement. So this was announced, as you see, 12 days ago. It is the Trade and Technology Council that sent out this statement saying, actually putting their spotlight on e-invoicing, saying this is important for the US. It brings efficiency gains, it brings cost saving, it brings trade benefits. And so there's no mandate in the US, but it's important that these announcements go out so that relevant parties understand that this really is the future in the US, and you can put your development money in it, because the e-invoicing is there to stay. And in the end, it says we intend to continue to cooperate and coordinate with greater compatibility, particularly in terms of business and technological interoperability. And therewith, they mean the interoperability also with Europe and also with Asia, so with the PEPL network as an example. So this is really a strong statement, and we as DBNA try to position ourselves in how will we, based on this, position what we will do as a next step, and how we will communicate this. So the achievements so far of DBNA, the number of members being 35, out of which 28 service providers, 4 customers, so more customers from, for instance, the energy cell and supply chain, and 2 others not belonging to these categories. A big moment was the moment that the first invoice was sent via the network. It was only a few weeks ago, and a press release went out, being Avalara that sent an invoice to Storkov, and not much later it was service provider Duck Studio also sending to Storkov. And I know that in the meantime Storkov already sent to other service providers. So really the transactions are getting up to pace. And that means the network is now really in production and can really be used by everyone. As you see, the shared service center, the SSC, is in place, so being able to serve all of you. And the API for mass registration of customers is almost ready. I know there are 2 demos this week already, so I think end of the week this will be ready. So customers can be registered quite easily on the network. 3 committees: technical committee, membership and marketing adoption committee, and the policy committee. So if you want to attribute, please feel free. In the end of the presentation, I'll give you the name of Chris Welsh, who is the chairman, and you could reach out to him and let him know that you're interested in joining one of the committees. And it's important that as many, as I said, access points as possible join the network. Okay, so going global, we're nearing the subject that this presentation is about, because this is about identifiers. The US started off with specific identifiers for the US on the DBNA network, and those were the standard identifiers being used in the US, employer identification number, social security number, and more non-US specific identifiers, GLN, DUNS, and legal entity identifier for Canada, Mexico. But those are identifiers that are, let's say, comfortable to be used in the US, Canada, and Mexico. But what we realized is that the US isn't an island. So companies in the US and companies outside the US trade with each other. So companies in the US need to reach companies in the rest of the world and the other way around. So what we said is it's interesting to introduce standard identifiers for every company in the world to be able to sign up with to the DBNA network. And we made sure that these identifiers also aligned with the identifiers being used on the OpenPeppol network. And that last element is important because, of course, companies that are already connected to Peppol have an API connection via a service provider, fully up and running with e-invoices over the Peppol network. And how easy would it be for them that they can use the same identifier, for instance, a tax number or a Chamber of Commerce number or Belgium KBO number, the same identifier to sign up with to the DBNA network, meaning just a double registration of a customer that's already into e-invoicing is enough to also sign up to the DBNA network. And this is really relevant for the scalability and the future growth of DBNA. And this is why we think that just like social networks in the past, the network can grow, but you can't tell, of course, outside the US, because the focus is on the US, but which other countries will be interested to use the network? Countries that don't have a network or don't have a format that's really usable, don't have a flexible invoice format to use and transport over other networks. Okay, next slide. The global identifiers themselves. So the purpose of the global country customer identifiers, and I'm using different names for the same subject. So actually, technically, they're called business identifiers. But we thought the name country customer identifier, abbreviation CCI, is very applicable. So this is why you see two names, business identifiers and country customer identifiers. So the advantage, of course, is harmonization and standardization. That brings that if you want to search for a company and you know the identifier that they're registered in with that country is enough to also find them on the DBNA network. So in a global directory, you can find them more easily. There's an auto discovery, meaning an element that service providers can use to try and search on the network for a certain company. You have VAT number 123, you ask the network, is this present? And then somewhere in the world, someone answers, yes, it's with us. And so that's important to know which number you have to search for. And there we advise, and it's not set in stone yet, it's no policy yet by the DBNA, but we advise if you send an invoice, do this DBNAlliance first, meaning that when you offer an invoice to the network, ask the network first, is it available? And if it's available, of course, the invoice can be delivered within a few seconds, and it's processable as it reaches the customer as an readable, processable document. And only after you check the network, then, for instance, you search closed networks or you try sending it via email. And using this DBNA first strategy means that whenever you're able to deliver one more invoice via the network, it means one less via email. And so it brings a sort of a transition model where you slowly shift from the old email to DBNA network at the open exchange model. And that's important because if you don't do DBNA first, that would mean that, for instance, you as a company yourself would decide that you will send an e-invoice to a specific customer. And that's really confusing because if a customer looks you up and sees, oh, that's my supplier is on the network. But if they sign up as a receiver and they don't receive anything, then there's big confusion. Why do I see my supplier as on the network, but why am I not receiving? That means that the supplier decided that they wanted to tick the box before they sent, but that's not the way of working of an open exchange network. So that's why we say DBNAlliance first strategy, if you implement it, is really important. And for that reason, you will be able to match based on the identifier. So the sender puts the identifier in the invoice and receives the receiver, the customer. And for that reason, you know what to fill out your customer card with, which identifiers, if you want to send to South Africa or if you want to send to Japan via the DBNA network, you only have to register the identifiers that are stipulated in the policy. So, and I'll show you the policy later. But so then you know per country which identifiers to collect. And so it really makes it simple and it really makes it useful for every country. So and the last sentence, every company in the world can now start sending and receiving e-invoices as long as they are connected to a DBNAlliance certified service provider. And so you need to be connected, and you can connect, of course, as we're discussing now, via an API connection. But it could also be that you're a small company or medium-sized company, and that you use software that supports DBNAlliance. And so then your own software solution, your financial software that you're using, supports DBNAlliance e-invoicing. So for those financial systems, it's also really important to connect to the network. Because they can serve all their customers with just the registration, and then they are able to send invoices and receive invoices. So for adoption, I would say around 40% of the companies within a country uses some kind of financial software solution, like Xero or Sage or QuickBooks. So it's important per country that they sign up to networks. And as an example, Denmark, but this is about Peppol, Denmark made it mandatory for financial software providers to be connected to the Peppol network. So they wanted to push adoption and just said, okay, it's mandatory for financial service providers. So some more on the country customer identifiers. You see, it is a business identifier. So here on top, it's this identifier we're talking about. So this we standardized and we harmonized. There are more identifiers, like for service providers and business document type and business process identifiers. But this is not what this presentation and what this harmonization is about. The specifications and the list with all the identifiers themselves can be found on GitHub. This is the URL where you would be able to find them. And we also put the same documents on a blog, a bit of a long URL here, but it's usable, where you can also find them and read into it. So later you will be able to download them, but, we will send them towards you. But also these are addresses where you can find those. Next slide. So the country company identifiers. So here you see the list. It's a bit small, but you see that there's it's all about the participant ID. And so it's the identifier that the companies are signed up with. And here you see, at least I see it quite small, but per country there's an identifier, many of them being on the one hand VAT numbers, which are identifiers already used on the Peppol network, many of them being TIN numbers, tax identifier number, and some of them the standard locally used identifiers that countries normally use. And so for that reason, they're standardized, it's set in stone. It's a flexible document. So whenever a country would say, okay, hey, you have 2 identifiers for our country, but we have 1 more, we are happy to investigate and to see if we need to add that identifier to make the process more logical. But this is what we standardized, and up here you see how this then would look. So it's the participant ID, it's a scheme ID, so which ID, like for instance GLN you're using, plus the number combined, it's called participant ID. Okay, and then what are the advantages of the UBL format that the US is using? I think that's 2.3 we're talking about. It is quite a flexible format. And with flexible, we mean many countries can use this UBL format. As an example, for instance, India would be able to use the format, meaning that a company in India can sign up to the DBNA network as a receiver, and well, a large logistics sender could send all their invoices to, and not all of them, not the specific ones for that customer, via the DBNA network. It's a flexible format, and it fits many tax rules per country. So here you see it's multiple taxes at an invoice line level, which is important in some countries. It supports tax amounts, not only percentages at the line level, and it supports order reference at the line level. And I know Peppol is also working on order references, so this is something that they will add to. But you see, it makes summary invoices possible, and there are some countries where summary invoices are more the norm, Japan being one of the examples. Okay, why connect to the DBNA exchange framework? Of course, as discussed, it gives you access to a huge market with billions of invoices that need to be sent in the near future, sent and received. And actually, we're at the start of the growth of this network. So it's quite exciting that we are supporting this network and bringing this into a success. It's like, think about the telephone network that started. It was, in the beginning, it was not really functional and not really interoperable, but then it grew according to the wishes of everyone that used it, the members, and then it became a success. And for sure, also DBNA will be a big success within a few years. And now we're at the start of it. Existing e-invoicing customers can register and participate. With that, we mean, of course, other e-invoicing customers that are already, for instance, connected to the Peppol network or to other networks like, again, Tungsten, Sapariba, Coupa. You can connect to both networks. As I said, double registration. You can use the same identifier that you already use on Peppol to register on the DBNA network with, bringing that you don't even have as an access point. You don't even have to call your customer and ask for the identifier. You can just ask them, can I also, or do you want to be registered on DBNA also? Is it important to you? And then we can register you on the DBNA network. It's as simple as that. As said, identifiers for the entire world, not for countries that are let's say not befriended. There are some countries on which penalties are set out. So some countries are left out for the moment, but of course they can join as soon as the relations are better with the US. Then flexible format, usable globally. Yes, we discussed, and connect a subsidiary in the United States. This is just an example that you could be connected for e-invoicing in Europe, but you're opening a subsidiary in the US. For that US subsidiary, it's more logical to use a US identifier, to a US flexible format to sign up to the DBNA network with. That means that you can also send to the European company from that subsidiary, and that European company could also be connected to the Peppol network. And so there's quite some interoperability possible between the networks. The networks, to emphasize, are not interoperable yet. But if you work with automatic format generation. I will show that later. You can make that possible. Okay, here I see in the remarks, so crying out for compliance with PEPL and CTC mandates. Yeah, I know about the CTC mandates, of course. But these mostly are, sort of small networks around the tax authority. Take Italy with SDI, take Poland with KSEF. And the best, of course, is if an open exchange network and a tax authority combine. And for instance, one of the countries that this is really happening is Malaysia, where you have the PEPL network supported by MDEC, the PEPL authority in Malaysia, and you have the tax authority, LHDN. And LHDN sets the mandate. LHDN says, okay, companies need to send all their invoices via the tax authority or get them certified. But on the other hand, they're also promoting the growth of an open exchange network. So that means that the combination of the two brings that the tax authority mandate pushes adoption of the open exchange network, and it offers the country a secure infrastructure. And so yes, CTC mandates and them being combined with open exchange networks is a great future. And to be honest, a lot of countries start with e-invoicing as they think it's important that companies report their invoices to the tax authority. But it also makes sure that we as companies have less work to do when you have to send your details to the tax authority. So there are advantages on both sides. And then the question, do you feel that the mandate is coming for the US? No. So they're not talking about it yet. So that's why we are searching for involvement, of course, of the government. Well, the White House announcement was important. These global identifiers will make sure that the DBNA network can grow quicker. And of course, the 4 cells I just discussed are also pushing adoption of the network, but there's no mandate, and we're aware of that. Here a short explanation about what StoreCove does in this. So StoreCove is both a PEPL access point and a DBNA certified access point. And we offer both solutions via one API. So that means that if a customer of StoreCove says, I now want to sign up to the DBNA network, we only have to register them on the network. And as we do something special, being generating the format that's needed on the receiving side automatically, we function as a switch between the PEPL and the DBNA network. Because if you, as a PEPL sender, add the identifier of the US company, we will send the invoice over the DBNA network because of the double registration, and we'll ask the receiver, what format do you need? And then automatically generate the format that's needed on the receiving side. And so for those two special elements, double registration, PEPL, DBNA, but also generating the specific format, we can operate as a switch and actually can help every company to send invoices and receive invoices over the two networks. We offer, and this combines with the question about the tax authority mandates, we offer compliant tax authority reporting in countries where there are future mandates mainly. So that is about Italy, which is a mandate from the past, but more Poland, Romania, Portugal, Spain, Malaysia, Singapore. Maybe Japan will come with a mandate in a year, who knows, United Arab Emirates. So those are countries where there's a real need. Companies just need to comply with the mandate, and they need an e-invoicing network for secure sending. So these are the countries we mainly focus on. And so that's around the USPs that we offer. And so the main focus is on interoperability, coverage, and adhering to the mandate per CTC country. And as you might know, so at this moment Malaysia is really important, but the upcoming next country will be Singapore. And they say that's okay, that's a rumor, but Q1 next year, they might come with their CTC mandate. So it's an exciting time in Asia. Okay, then you might question how is this applicable for me, and how can we get started? So if you want to sign up to the DBNA network, there's yeah, and the website, of course, DBNAlliance.org, where you can find everything, read about the Alliance, and even sign up. But what's also important is that providers, the service providers, start testing, because the network is as interesting as the number of participants that's on the network. So we offer an endpoint to which service providers that sign up can send their invoices for testing, and we will answer them, of course, with notifications, but also we can send invoices to that service provider if they need. For companies, yeah, if you're interested in registering on the DBNA network, as I said, at this moment there are 28 service providers on the network, so you do not have to sign up with Storkhof. You can sign up with a service provider that fits your needs and that maybe is situated in your country and for some reason is more interesting for you. So this is the network effect. We all have to help each other to make sure that the network itself grows. But you can reach out to us at info@storkhof.com. And then for developers, developers, of course, want to know when they connect, yeah, what the specifics are, of course, of the solution. And this mainly is a technical decision. It's not like you should ask your management team to fully dive into all the information there is, because at the end, it will be the developers and the technicians that will advise a solution to the management. So we realize that it's important to just open up your API documentation so that companies can test. For that reason, we have a sandbox environment in which they can test freely. You can request a sandbox environment and just send us your email address on which you want the sandbox environment, and then you can start testing. And what might be important, and this might be interesting for financial solution providers or let's say integration partners, is that you can have your own listing with DBNA. So even if you use a white label solution, so you're not building the technology yourself, but you use a third-party solution, you can purchase a certificate with DBNA, and we can activate that certificate in the API. And by doing so, your company name will be listed as DBNA certified access point. So this is a feature that is mainly interesting for marketing purposes. And last week I was at a conference talking to one of the users of a financial package, and they said they really made their selection on looking through the certified access points and saying, okay, this company is certified, so they are ready for the future. That's why we'll select them. And so for marketing purposes, it is interesting. And yeah, you can use that, of course, and advertise that towards your customers that you're certified. Last slide. So what's next? The webinar, actually sort of the same webinar like we're doing today, will be on the 10th of May. And this will be Chris Welsh running this webinar. So if you're interested and maybe interested to learn more about him, please join that webinar. You'll find how to sign up on the DBNA website again. Coming Monday, there will be a face-to-face member day in Miami. So in Miami, there's an exchange summit from Virion, the organization is called. And the day before the webinar, you can visit the face-to-face meeting of the DBNA, and everyone is invited. So you don't have to be a member, like it says here, but everyone is invited. Just if you're interested, please make sure that you join. And yeah, the last thing I want to ask from you is if you're interested to join a work group that is really interesting for the DBNA itself. So feel free and reach out to Chris and tell him that you're interested. Now I will take you through the questions that here. Sorry that I wasn't able to look into these quicker. Does it take authority over the version of this code list? Yes. Or does it defer authorities, e.g. Yeah, so it means that the code list is actually set up by identifiers that are given out by certified organizations per country. And so the VAT number or the TIN number or the Chamber of Commerce number, they're all external organizations who standardized giving out these identifiers. So it's not DBNA that's making these identifiers up or registering them. It's really their external identifiers, maybe ISO list identifiers that are used in this list. How to be a PEPL access provider in Malaysia? Can Storkov help? Yes. So in Malaysia, two things. So there's MDEC, PEPL Authority. There's LHDNM, the tax authority. We make sure that via the same API connection again, you report to LHDNM. You get the certificate back from LHDNM, and you can send a compliant invoice. As I explained, they being LHDNM and MDEC want you to send that invoice over the PEPL network, but it's no obligation. So we can also send that invoice certified by the LHDNM via email, but the preferred way of sending it is PEPL. And in our subscriptions, that's included. And so then you have PEPL, DBNA included in the subscription that you sign up for Malaysia. To be open, so the testing towards LHDNM has just started for every access point, so no one is ready, but access points will start being ready beginning of May. And same with us, beginning of May, that's when we expect to be ready. We have a lot of customers that are really jumping towards more details around the API connection. And for instance, end of this week, we plan to send out again more information about the connection to LHDNM. But we are fully present, two colleagues in Malaysia. So if we can help you, we will be happy to. Any collaboration for developers, as we are on ERP integrations? Absolutely. So if you are into ERP integrations, that means that you have the knowledge to register on for instance, a RESTful JSON API. So that means you could resell the product towards your customers. And that brings that you only need to build one API connection with your customer, and you could reuse that API connection just by generating a new API key per customer. So we have a lot of integration partners for different ERP systems, Oracle, SAP, Microsoft. So happy to talk if you're interested. Just wondering what the process is if ISO updates or if PEPL decide allow completely different identifiers. Yes, we have to be aware of that, and I think that's more for the DBNA organization. So I would like to ask you to ask that question there. Can I have Malaysia? No. Yes, you can have Malaysia. And as said, the mandate for Malaysia. No, sorry, I didn't say that yet. But mandate for Malaysia, 1st of August, for the 5,000 largest companies in Malaysia. Companies doing 100 million ringgit or more. So it's a closed group for this moment we focus on. But we are ready to help you if you need a connection in Malaysia. And what it looks like, as it's only a few months from 1st of August, so it looks like they will be a bit less strict, meaning that they might not punish you when you're not ready 1st of August. But this is not 100% sure, but that's what we expect, because of course there's a lot of pressure. Access points are ready beginning of May, and everyone should be connected 1st of August. That's a really short time period, but everyone is doing their best in Malaysia, and I think they're communicating wonderfully. So yeah, they're doing good things. My telephone number is. Thank you so much. Any question that I missed? PEPL was ahead of DBNA. Why didn't the US take PEPL as a starting point? Yes, we get this question a lot. There are many reasons for that. Mainly, for instance, that flexible format. The PEPL format was not fully usable in the US. Of course, the US has different identifiers. It is partly a political thing. So the SML, SMP owned by Europe, used in the US is not logical. Sometimes we say it's the not invented here syndrome. Of course, you don't want to just copy, but come with your better version. And it might be that the DBNA is a better version, but we'll see, according to the growth numbers over the coming years. But still, PEPL and DBNA are working via the GIF, the Global Interoperability Framework, working towards a sort of interoperability. So they understand that they have to work together. As I said, Storkov acts as a switch between the two networks, so that already is interoperability, but via an access point provider. So they're working towards interoperability. That's what's important. I want to know the advantages compared to PEPL. Yeah, so the flexible format is important, but also PEPL uses authorities per country. And that means that authorities set the rules, the identifiers, the formats, but also have to be erected. So this is a more regulated process and more authority involvement. That might slow the growth down a bit, but on the other hand, it can set mandates. So there are differences, pluses and minuses for both. How to be part of a committee, yes, so that we share at the last slides. Without a mandate, will there ever be sufficient level of adoption? Good question. Working on that. 34-5 joined already, and we see a lot of interest also from not only Mexico and Canada with standard identifiers, but also Chile, Colombia, access points signing up from those countries. Yeah, I think that's about it. We'll scroll to the end. You can indeed reach out. Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much for attending the session. And yeah, as I said, there will be a next session, sort of the same, on the 10th of May. If you can come to Miami, feel free, because all the representatives of the DBNA will be there, and it will be, I think, at this moment around 70 participants already. And after that, there will be an icebreaker reception for the seminar for the next day. So there will be a lot of industry over there. Thank you very much. And yeah, please reach out if you have questions around DBNA or about the services of Storkov. Thank you all. Bye-bye.